Hello, Dr. Bauer. Thank you for joining us for the World Carnivorous Plant Day from England. My name is Alex, and I'm a middle school student in the United States.
Hi, my name is Sophie and I'm from Australia. Pitcher plants in North America, Australia, and in Asia are very similar. We recently learned in science class that convergent evolution is when organisms are not closely related but evolve independently, similar traits as a result of having to adapt to similar environments. Can you tell me about the evolution of the Australian pitcher plant?
I can try because actually the Australian pitcher plants are absolutely not my specialty. So I work mainly on the Asian pitcher plants and have done a little bit of work on South American pitcher plants. But from what I know and what you can see when you look, of course, at all of them, is that they all look really, really similar. So they all have pitchers that look very similar, much more similar than dissimilar. So amazingly enough, the all three groups are not related to each other. So in fact, your Australian pitcher plant is as related to my Asian pitcher plant as you and I are to a flatworm. So really completely different spectrum of evolution. The other thing that I find mind-boggling is that in North American and Asian pitcher plants, the pitcher develops the opposite way round from the Australian one. So the parts of the pitcher that are at the base of the leaf, so if this was a leaf and this was the leaf stalk, then in my Asian pitcher plants, this bottom bit makes the pitcher and this top bit makes the lid of the pitcher. In your Australian pitcher plants, it's the other way around. So the bottom bit makes the lid and the top bit makes the pitcher.
Thank you.
Divergent evolution occurs when two separate species evolve differently from a common ancestor. Can you please share with us what you learned about other carnivorous plant evolution?
Yeah, again, I can try because I'm also not really an evolutionary biologist, but I have, of course, because I really love pitcher plants. I don't just study them; I just love them. So I've been traveling a lot in Southeast Asia and looking at all sorts of different pitcher plants. And what you can see is that even though they're all closely related in one family, they're all in the same genus Nepenthes, you get very, very different types of pitcher plants. You get some that have a pitcher that is just this big, like barely as long as my little finger. And you get some that have a pitcher that is as long as my forearm. You get some that have a pitcher that is very narrow and long, like a little tube. And you have other ones that have really big, wide pitchers. And then I'm particularly interested in how they trap their prey. So I was amazed to see that all these different species have evolved completely different ways of trapping prey, and they specialize on different type of prey. So even though they all come from the same ancestor, you have some that trap ants, quite a lot of them actually. You have some that have specializations to trap flies, so they're transformed to be a light trap, a bit like the Californian pitcher plant, the Darlingtonia, that you might have seen if you've ever gone to Northern California and to Oregon. And so there's a Southeast Asian Nepenthes that has the same kind of trap where you can come in from the side and have light shining through a dome at the top. And then there's some that have evolved to be a toilet and get visited by mammals, and they don't capture any insects anymore, but they capture mammal poop. And there's others that have evolved to capture nothing but termites. And they grow a little weird little white ring around the opening of their pitcher, which looks and smells and tastes like a lichen species that these termites like to eat. And it's actually not very good at trapping anything. The termites just come in such masses that they push each other into the trap and then they can't get out anymore. So I could go on for an hour like this. There's a lot of different mechanisms within this one group that have all evolved from the same ancestor.
Okay, thank you.
We are currently learning about symbiosis. We know that not all animals that enter the pitcher's trap become the prey. Can you tell us what you have learned about the Asian pitcher plant, Nepenthes, and the relationship with crab spiders?
Yes, yes, that's one of my favorite ones, even though it's by no means the only example of pitcher plants living together with other animals and being a home for other animals. But the crab spiders are really fascinating. So they live inside the pitcher. And you know, the pitcher has like a rim at the top that looks like a collar. And the crab spider tends to hide underneath, so you don't even see it. But when you come and disturb it, it drops into the pitcher fluid and hides at the bottom. And you would think that that's it for the crab spider, that it's just being trapped in the fluid and getting digested. But the crab spider is really clever. So like other spiders, it can spin a spider thread. So when it drops in, it carries its own safety line down. And when it's safe to come out again, it pulls itself out on its own thread. So it's a really, really fascinating sort of interaction. They just stay in the pitchers most of their life. They rear their young in there. So they apparently go and capture the larvae of flies and mosquitoes in the fluid. So it's wholly adapted to living inside the pitcher.
Have you seen this in the wild?
Yes, I have. I have. So in my field sites, there were two species of Asian pitcher plants mainly, and they both had crab spiders living in them. And I actually had a student coming with me over 10 years ago who studied the crab spiders, and we just published what he found like last year. So it took a long time to write it up and publish it. But yeah, it's a fascinating interaction. We still don't know that much about the biology of the spider, but there's so many animals living inside pitcher plants, right? So people always think of pitcher plants as a killer plant that just traps and kills and digests things, and just carnivorous plants as these really mean, like animal eating plants. But it's only half of the story. When you look inside a pitcher plant, there's a whole little ecosystem in it, like a little miniature cosmos just inside the fluid. There's a whole food web from like microbes being eaten by slightly larger things, being eaten by slightly larger things, being eaten by big mosquito and fly larvae, even tadpoles at times living and developing in the fluid. So you have a real little world in each of them. So it's really fascinating to see.
Wow, that's interesting. Thank you.
Why should people be celebrating carnivorous plants?
Oh, I think there's a lot of reasons why people should be excited about carnivorous plants. Well, first of all, I just touched on one of these things, right? There's so much to discover. Like you think you just have a plant, and then you look inside and you find a whole world living inside the fluid. For scientists, they're actually really exciting plants because lots of different scientists use them as a model to study things. So there are scientists who are interested in aquatic ecosystems, so ecosystems in a water habitat. And it's really hard to study lakes, right? A lake is big, you need years to take stock of what lives in the lake. And things in a lake happen slowly. All the changes happen really slowly because it's such a big body of water. So when you disturb it, it takes years for it to take place. So if you want to have a good sample size, scientists are always excited about sample size, right? They always want to do statistics. You can only do statistics if you have lots of things to look at. It's like when you measure people, if you measure two people, you can't say how big the people in the US are. If you measure 2,000 people, you maybe can say, okay, the average height is 6'2". Maybe not. That would be quite tall, but something like that. So it's same when you want to study lakes. You cannot study 2,000 lakes very easily, but you can study 2,000 pitcher plants or 2,000 pitchers really easily. And they all grow in the same climate in a very small place. So you can do experiments where you add something to half of them and not to the other and see what is the effect. Or you take like one species out of the ecosystem and have a look what it does. So it's a great system to do ecological studies. I'm interested in how physics interact with nature, right? So I'm very interested in what makes the surfaces of the pitcher plant slippery for insects. How do all these things work? And again, it's a great model. Like a lot of plants have one slippery surface. A pitcher plant has about 3 or 4 different slippery surfaces, all very close together. And they're all very, very slippery because the pitcher plant really needs them to be slippery. Yeah, if for a normal plant the slippery surface fails, maybe it gets a bit more insects eating its leaf. But if for a pitcher plant the slippery surface fails, it doesn't get any food anymore. So it's really important for the pitcher plant to have a really good slippery surface. And engineers have realized that, and they're now using pitcher plants as a template to make structures that we can use as humans. So there's so many reasons to care about pitcher plants, and above all, of course, because they're really beautiful.
Yeah.
Right, so we love beautiful things. We care about orchids, we care about birds, we care about butterflies, and about pitcher plants for the same reason. They're just beautiful.
Thank you for joining us today on World.
Thank you, guys. It's a pleasure to be with you. Good luck with your Carnivorous Plant Day, and yeah, I hope you get a lot of really cool videos to show.
Thank you.